Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us. We're at a critical moment in this country. We're facing great challenges. Our economy is struggling, our deficit ballooning, and our future uncertain. Yet we have a Congress led by Nancy Pelosi and robotically followed by Jim Himes that keeps making the wrong choices. They raise our taxes in a recession, explode spending, borrow against our children and grandchildren's future to bail out banks and automobile companies. Now, they want the government to take over health care. This is wrong, we can't afford it, and we need to stop them. My name is Russo, and I'm running for Congress to stop Nancy Pelosi and Jim Himes from suffering our economy. And although no one can deny that our health insurance system needs reform, I won't let them destroy the best health care system in the world. I'm running for Congress to give the people the kind of independent, thoughtful leadership they deserve. I'm running for Congress because we cannot afford another rubber stamp whose solution to our every problem is more spending and higher taxes. Connecticut's 4th Congressional District has always had an independent voice in Congress. Whether it was Stuart McKinney or Chris Shays, we've elected independent, outspoken leaders to represent us. They always took the time to listen and learn from their constituents. They didn't march in lockstep with their party bosses. They told us what they believed, and sometimes we disagreed, but we knew that our interests came first. We've never had a rubber stamp represent us in Congress, until now. Jim Himes is marching in lockstep with Nancy Pelosi on the economy, on health care, on taxes and spending. Now, Jim Himes wants you to believe that he's independent because he only votes with Nancy Pelosi 95% of the time. 95%. Do you agree with your spouses 95% of the time? It's a bad example. I'm newly married, as you all know. Do you agree with your children, with your friends, with anyone 95% of the time? Do you agree with your boss 95% of the time? Well, Jim Himes agrees with his boss 95% of the time. Jim Himes actually recently announced that he was the most independent congressman in Connecticut. Compared to who? Rosa DeLauro? That's like Bernie Madoff announcing that he's more trustworthy than Charlie Ponzi. It just doesn't make any sense. Well, I have news for Mr. 95%. Agreeing with Nancy Pelosi 95% of the time is not independent. It's partisan, it's liberal, and it's wrong. It's wrong to address every question with the same answer. Spend more of our money, raise more of our taxes, and government will solve our problems. We need to change our direction, and we need to change it now. Thank you. The economic crisis has hit a lot of families in Connecticut pretty hard. A lot of folks lost jobs, and the unemployment rate is still climbing. Jim Himes and the Democratic Congress came to the American people, and they told us, we have the answer. What was the answer? They told us to look the other way, and they picked our pockets. Literally trillions and trillions of dollars of new spending. They took our money, and they used it to take over the banks. They took more of our money, and they used it to take over the auto manufacturers. Their prescription to revive the economy was a so-called stimulus bill that was bloated with earmarks and pork barrel spending. The ringleader of this Democratic Congress, Nancy Pelosi, got $30 million to bail out a mouse habitat in her own district. They exploded the deficit to more than $1 trillion. The national debt is nearing $12 trillion. That's a debt that our children and our grandchildren are going to be forced to repay. Believe it or not, the government has a credit limit just like you and I. But unlike us, the government is getting ready to raise their credit limit another time. We might think that's the wrong answer, but to the Democrats in Congress and Jim Himes, that's their answer to everything. It's time we held them accountable. There's no question that our healthcare system is in crisis. We have a crisis of affordability. Healthcare is too expensive, and there are people without healthcare because they can't afford healthcare. But Jim Himes and the Democrats keep making the wrong decisions. Their plan ignores the crisis of rising costs. Thank you, Greg. After all, they could just keep coming back for more of our money. Instead, they want to do for healthcare what they did for General Motors. They want to have a government takeover. We can't let that happen. Healthcare is very personal for me. If you know me, you know that my family has been practicing medicine in Connecticut for more than 50 years. My grandfather devoted his life to the health and welfare of this community. My father and my brother Greg, every day, counsel patients about making the right choices for their health. The relationship between a doctor and a patient is sacred. I'm going to fight to make sure it stays that way. If we're going to reform healthcare, we need to keep 4 goals in mind. It should remain personal, and we need to honor the doctor-patient relationship. It should be portable. We need to make sure if you change jobs, you don't need to change doctors. And it should be accessible for all Americans, regardless of income or pre-existing conditions. That's why we need to focus on making it affordable. We cannot let costs be a barrier to care. We need to pass tort reform and decrease unnecessary mandates and invest in information technology that allows us to share knowledge. We don't need yet another government takeover. Let me tell you why. With your help, I can win this race. I've worked side by side with Congressman Chris Shays and Governor Jody Rell, 2 sincere, common-sense public servants who have taught me volumes about public service. We may have disagreed with Chris Shays from time to time, but he always took the time to listen to the people of the 4th Congressional District. I put those lessons to work as a Republican representing Bridgeport, Trumbull, and Monroe in the state Senate, and I got results. In Hartford, I fought to cut the gas tax and to cap property tax increases. I helped strike down unfunded mandates that placed a burden on local taxpayers, and I spearheaded an audit of the way Bridgeport's public schools spend the state's money. As the economy began to falter, I found a way to save good manufacturing jobs from leaving Connecticut. I learned what it takes to bring our Republican message into the bluest part of this blue state, go head-to-head with the Democrats, and win. With your help, I can't wait to take on Jim Himes and the liberal Democrats who give his marching orders. This is an important campaign, and I look forward to the debate over the coming months. I'm Rob Russo, and I'm running to be your representative in Congress because it's time we replaced a liberal rubber stamp. It's time we end one-party rule. It's time we take back this country, take back this Congress, and stop mortgaging our children and our grandchildren's future. Thank you all very much.